Pre-playoff power rankings are here, and now that we've had a few days to absorb the 2025 NASCAR schedule, let's break down the biggest events. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. Hope you had a great Labor Day weekend. Want to give a quick shout out to my friends at Peanut Patch. They'll be at Atlanta Motor Speedway this weekend. Later in this episode, we'll invite a couple of their guys on to talk more about what they've got going on. But first, we've got some overdue assignments that I have to catch up on. I was out of town for a few days last week. Of course, that's the week NASCAR finally releases the 2025 schedule. We'd already discussed some of the highlights: Mexico City, Gateway, New Hampshire being added to the playoffs, Talladega in the round of 8. We've touched on the highlights in the past, but we haven't talked since the full Truck, Xfinity, and Cup schedules were officially released. So that's what we're going to do right now. First, a look at the 2025 NASCAR Cup Series schedule. The Clash at Bowman Gray, February 2nd, opens the season. Some other notables: Homestead, Miami, confirmed, has moved up to March. Some folks wondering if that's to give them more time to make renovations to bid for the 2026 finale. Fingers crossed that happens. Mexico City, of course, June 15th. That's Father's Day weekend. Replaces the spring Richmond date. More on that in a minute. Dover gets pushed back to July 20th. And on a related note, Michigan has been moved up to early June. Dover and Michigan have been plagued by bad weather in recent years, and since both tracks now only get one Cup weekend a season, I think this is a good move by NASCAR to try and move things around, hopefully catch some sunny skies. Also worth noting, Iowa Speedway has moved back to August 3rd, but great to see Iowa back. Saw last week that Iowa's not expecting to finish the repave. I mean, the Cup race was pretty good there this year, despite some lanes not being repaved. Can't quite say the same about IndyCar. IndyCar fans, let me know if I'm way off base here. I'm sure they would have preferred to see a fully finished repave. But yeah, I guess more of the same from Iowa next year, except now that race will not be in June. Instead, it will be in August. We've already talked about the playoffs, Talladega being in the round of 8. I still don't know how I feel about that. That's dangerously close to championship weekend, if you ask me. But there you go. A look at the 2025 NASCAR Cup Series schedule. More on that in a moment. Let's take a look at the Xfinity Series schedule. This was also released late last week. They, of course, begin their season at Daytona. The big news, though, is the return of Rockingham Speedway. Easter weekend, the Cup Series will be off, but the Truck and Xfinity Series will head to the Rock for the first time since 2013, right? Was the last time the Truck Series was there. I don't think the Xfinity Series has been there since 2004 when the Cup Series left. Also, as you can see on the Xfinity schedule, they will join the Cup cars in Mexico City June 14th and 15th. The Xfinity Series, then Nationwide Series, raced in Mexico City last in 2008, and that race was won by Kyle Busch. But there you go, a good look at the Xfinity Series schedule. The Truck Series schedule next year is actually longer. They've added at least one race, 25 races on next year's Craftsman Truck Series schedule. Here you go. They will, of course, be part of that Rockingham doubleheader in April. Michigan is back on the schedule, slated for early June. Lime Rock Park, scheduled for June 28th. I believe this is the first time the Truck Series will have raced at Lime Rock Park, the Connecticut road course. That's pretty cool, kind of a surprise. But those are some of the highlights. Here is the full 2025 Craftsman Truck Series schedule. So let me know what you think. I'm going to let you know real quick what I think. Again, a lot of the details have been leaked over the past few weeks, few months, but now that we've had a few days to fully absorb all this information, here are some of my takeaways. One off week for the NASCAR Cup Series is kind of insane, especially since it's so early in the season. I'm sure many in the industry are happy to have Easter Sunday off, but that being the only off week followed by a 28-week grind to the finish is kind of absurd, is kind of insane. NASCAR already has one of the longest schedules in professional sports. They race from early February to mid-November. That's close to 9 months out of the year. The drivers will be fine. It's the crew guys, the road crew, the mechanics I worry about. We already hear from those in the industry that it's hard to retain talented crew members. A lot of other jobs out there offering similar pay and maybe a lot less time away from home. 28 straight weeks of racing, 28 straight weeks of travel. That is a grind. Easter Sunday off, cool. But that being the only off weekend is grueling. The Cup schedule does end a week early, so that's one less week they will compete head-to-head with the NFL. So from a rating standpoint, I completely get having one off week, but that is a brutal schedule for an already, I would say, overworked industry. My second big takeaway, Rockingham is back. See, this has been rumored for months probably, but honestly, I'm not sure I fully believed it until I saw it officially announced. I visited The Rock a little over a year ago. I uploaded that video to my channel. I met the owner, toured the facility, saw some of their recent renovations. This was, I think, last April, so almost a year and a half ago. At that point, they'd repaved the big track. They'd added safer barriers in the turns, at least, not on the straightaways yet. But the grandstands were still being torn down. Suites were still being remodeled. There was still a lot of work to be done. I, at the time, did not expect The Rock to land a national NASCAR series date anytime soon, but I guess I was wrong. I mean, that was a year and a half ago. It took a while, but I mean, it's happening. It is happening probably a little sooner than I would have expected. And Xfinity? Like trucks. Okay, I could see that. But Xfinity 2 on Easter weekend, Friday and Saturday? Whoa! It's another racetrack in North Carolina, so I hope people pack the stands. I mean, North Carolina, I get that there's more NASCAR fans there than like any other region in the world, but there's 2 Charlotte dates. North Wilkesboro is back. Bowman Gray is now on the Cup Series schedule. The Rock is back now. Nearby Bristol has 2 dates. Darlington has 2 dates. Martinsville has 2 dates. I just hope the crowd is good, especially considering there's no Cup Series race to headline. I'm glad that this lands on sort of an open weekend so that the truck and the Xfinity series truly get their chance to shine at Rockingham. Like, it's not like they're racing Rockingham, but Cup is in Mexico City at the same time. Because if that happened, everyone would be talking about this. Very few would be talking about Rockingham. No, Rockingham gets its time to shine. Trucks, Xfinity, no Cup to steal the headlines. That's awesome. That's great. I hope it goes well. I think Trucks and Xfinity are the right place to start. I'm not sure we need another Cup Series race in North Carolina. Again, when we have Wilkesboro and Bowman Gray now on the schedule as well. But I love that a historic racetrack is back on the schedule. I'm a bit surprised. See, when I visited the facility last year, the owner really only wanted to talk about music festivals, not much about racing. But hey, racing brings in big bucks, and racing is at the core of what Rockingham Speedway always has been. So this is very exciting. I'm sure fans in the area are thrilled to see it back. My third and final takeaway, and I've already touched on this one in the past, but Mexico City on the Cup Series calendar. This will be the first points-paying NASCAR Cup Series race outside of the United States in well over 60 years. I think it's a brilliant move. As I've said before, every other major sports league is pushing international. Major League Baseball and the NFL have played games in Mexico City. The NFL is about to play a game in Brazil. Bringing American sports to these different countries is exciting for them. I saw clips of dozens of photographers and media members there for the Mexico City announcement. These kinds of events do create buzz, do create excitement, so I completely get why NASCAR is doing this. I also get why some, let's say, longtime loyal NASCAR fans don't love this move. It's replacing Richmond. One Richmond date, let's be clear. I understand the pushback from some fans. Nobody wants to feel like they're being left behind. I'm sure it hurts to see a Richmond Raceway date move across the country, across borders even. Why are you taking my thing and giving it to somebody else? I get it. One of the most human emotions is the fear of abandonment. No one wants to be forgotten, so I completely get the pushback. But I also want to add some important perspective. While Richmond may be losing a date as NASCAR attempts to grow the sport internationally, NASCAR has given those grassroots fans a lot in recent seasons between North Wilkesboro Speedway, Iowa on the schedule in recent seasons, IRP for trucks. Now they're bringing back Rockingham. Lime Rock Park gets a truck date. Bowman Gray Stadium is going to host a sanctioned NASCAR Cup Series event in the year of our Lord 2025. What? So while I completely understand the concern from some, I hope this adds some perspective. NASCAR's been criticized in the past for abandoning their roots, and in many cases I think those criticisms are valid. Not in this case. NASCAR has returned to its roots in many ways the past few seasons, and I hope fans realize that. NASCAR continues to toe this line between its past and its future. They've done a lot to bring up the past, to revitalize historic racetracks, but they're continuing in turn to push new boundaries. I hope fans can be okay with that. See, NASCAR used to be a strictly regional sport, but it hasn't been a regional sport since at least the 90s. Blew up in the 90s, early 2000s, became a nationwide sport, a worldwide sport in many ways. And with that new exposure, with that expansion came a lot of money, increased purses, increased sponsorship, increased TV revenue. Teams started to build these massive shops. This turned into a huge industry. It's hard to go back to being just a regional sport. The way forward is to push into new markets, come up with creative events, some of them international. But the fact that NASCAR is able to do that while recently keeping an eye on its tradition and its past, I think is admirable. That's a difficult line to walk, and I think NASCAR has done a very good job balancing that tightrope for the past couple of seasons. So I completely get the concern, Richmond Raceway losing a date. But let's be honest, Richmond hasn't filled the stands consistently in years. They still have their late summer fall date. It's important to acknowledge the bigger picture. Bowman Gray, Rockingham, North Wilkesboro, etc., etc. Fans in the Carolinas, the Virginias, aren't being abandoned. In fact, NASCAR is probably paying closer attention to you now than they were 5-10 years ago. I hope that adds some perspective. I'm excited about Mexico City. It will be a very interesting event, if nothing else, next June. But now it's time to talk power rankings. I'll give you guys my round-by-round playoff predictions later in the week. I'm still working on them, but for now, here are the top 10 fastest overall drivers and teams in the NASCAR Cup Series, according to me. This list isn't strictly reserved for playoff drivers only. At number 10, I have Bubba Wallace. Started on pole, led 37 laps at Darlington, got caught up in a crash late. Also got caught up in a crash at Michigan, had a top 5 car there. Take out those two finishes and Bubba Wallace has a 10th, 5th, 4th, and 6th in recent races. He's been really fast all summer. The results just haven't always followed. Bubba Wallace is out of the playoffs, so I'm dropping him to number 10, not necessarily because I think this team is going to slow down, but because other playoff teams are going to step up. But I still believe Bubba Wallace could grab a win later this season. His 2 Cup Series wins have both come during the playoffs, when Bubba Wallace himself was not a playoff driver, so it's more than possible. Similarly, at number 9, he may have also missed the playoffs, but Kyle Busch still has plenty to race for. He's gotten at least 1 win every season of his full-time Cup Series career. He's got 10 more weeks to keep the streak alive. And that team has shown a ton of speed since the Olympic break. Even before the Olympic break, he was running top 5 at Indianapolis late when he wrecked himself. Top 5 car at Indianapolis, his teammate won Richmond, then Busch finished 4th at Michigan, 2nd at Daytona, 2nd at Darlington. Hey, don't forget we're going to Atlanta. Kyle Busch was part of that photo finish here in February, so anything is possible. Don't write Kyle Busch off completely, not just yet. Now let's focus on some playoff guys. At number 8, I've got Brad Keselowski. He's led laps in 4 of the last 6 races. 14th place finish at Darlington is okay, but he had back-to-back top 10s in the races before that. He enters this playoffs as the 8th seed, made the round of 12 last year. It hurts that his teammate Chris Buescher is not in the playoffs. Buescher's been very consistent this year. I think so has Brad. I think Brad Keselowski is going to have a solid playoff run. I've got him at number 8 right now. Another decent run for Chase Elliott this weekend, who I have at number 7. He was 11th at Darlington. He was caught up in a crash at Daytona. Take that out. Chase has finished 11th, 15th, 9th, 10th, 9th his past 5 races. Like, that's decent. That's pretty good, but it's not great. What happened to the top 5 speed we saw throughout much of the spring and early summer? What happened to Chase Elliott contending for wins? We haven't seen that Chase Elliott in recent weeks. I like how this first round shapes up for Elliott. We've got Atlanta, obviously, this weekend, then Watkins Glen after that. But for now, I have Chase Elliott at number 7. P6, William Byron ran top 10 all day at Darlington, earned 10 stage points, caught up in a crash late. Byron has shown more speed in recent weeks. I like Atlanta this weekend. Byron has 2 wins already at the new Atlanta configuration. Watch out for that number 24. I have William Byron at 6. Top 5, Denny Hamlin. Hasn't won a race since April. Can you believe that? But they're still grinding out decent finishes. Hamlin has crashed out of 2 of the last 6 races, but take those out, his average finish in the other 4 races is 5th, and he's led 197 laps during that span. The 11 car has top 5 speed most weeks, just gotta get that mojo back. Ignore the points penalty, ignore the lack of wins recently, focus on the positives. Despite the penalty, you're still the 6th seed. His driver, Tyler Reddick, just won the regular season championship. You focus on the positives. The vibes need to be uplifting heading into the playoffs. If that's the case, I think Denny Hamlin will make a deep run. For now, I have Denny at 5th. Number 4, the finishes have been really ugly recently for Ryan Blaney, but we know that Team Penske turns it on in the playoffs. And it's unfair to criticize Blaney after Darlington. He qualified well, was fast in practice, but got wrecked on lap 2. No fault of his own. Didn't even get a chance to race. Blaney is a top 5 seed entering these playoffs. I'll keep him top 5 in my power rankings. Gotta respect the defending series champion. Top 3, Christopher Bell at number 3. 3rd at Darlington, 3rd the week before at Daytona. Been pretty quiet. I'll put him in a quiet 3rd position on my power rankings. Showed a ton of speed over the summer, made some mistakes, some bad luck, not always the best finishes, but he is the 2 seed. After all, I expect C. Bell to make another deep playoff run. He's been to back-to-back championship 4s. Number 2, Kyle Larson made a statement Sunday night. Regular season championship on the line. Cliff Daniels gave him a fast race car. The pit crew executed all night. Larson swept the stages, led over 260 laps. That late restart where Ross Chastain stayed out and Briscoe made that bold 3-wide move, dirtied Larson's air, dropped him back into traffic. He finished 4th, but we saw that raw speed much of the night. Kyle Larson and the entire number 5 team just put the entire Cup Series garage on notice. But at number 1, I still have Tyler Reddick because Tyler Reddick made a statement of his own. Dude was literally sick in the car. Team was mixing up medical potions on pit road, trying to pass it to him during pit stops. Dude is falling out of the seat watching his regular season championship rival dominate the race. At one point, Reddick drops out of the top 10. He could have quit. It would have been so easy to just throw in the towel, but he didn't. Reddick grinded it out, finished inside the top 10, and held on to the regular season championship by 1 point. Gets to celebrate afterwards. Michael Jordan is there with a smile on his face. Reddick ends the regular season with more top 5s and more top 10s than anyone else. Can they keep that consistent speed through the playoffs? I certainly think so. Tyler Reddick at 1. I just noticed my top 6, 7 really didn't make any changes after last week. Hey, what can I say? I feel pretty confident in my rankings. I'm excited to share with y'all my actual round-by-round playoff predictions later this week, but for now, what do you think of my top 10, my power rankings? Before we go, I want to invite the guys from Peanut Patch onto the show. If you're heading to Atlanta Motor Speedway this weekend, keep a lookout for their booth. They're doing some pretty exciting stuff. Let's bring them on. I'm now joined by Brent Underwood and Boylan Bart Lattimore here to talk Peanut Patch. You gentlemen will be at Atlanta Motor Speedway this weekend. Brent, I know I've seen you at the track in the past. You guys love traveling around the country. What makes NASCAR races so fun for you to visit and to show off your stuff?
Well, I'm just a fan of left turns, Eric. I don't know about the rest of the guys, but I mean, it's exactly it's our heritage. It's what we grew up, watching with Davey Allison, Earnhardt, and Bart and I have talked about it, and it really feels like racing is getting back to what it was back in that attitude area. Not to pull off from the wrestling terminology, but it really does. I mean, we're having such a great time, and who knew giving away free boiled peanuts would be such a hit at a NASCAR race?
Absolutely. And Bart, you've been to you raced before. Are you going to be in Atlanta this weekend?
Absolutely, man. I'm from Charlotte, so I grew up going to the 600. I think it's been long enough I can say this now. We used to sneak in the infield, back in the day. So we spent a lot of time with a lot of race fans and watching a lot of racing growing up. And like Brent was saying, we're kind of excited that, it's kind of getting back to that, that Rubbins racing, and people are pushing people around a little bit and makes it more exciting. And what goes better with racing than boiled peanuts,
Absolutely.
Amen to that.
Yeah, a lot of aggression on the track, getting into the playoffs over the next 10 weeks, so every position, every point matters that much more. It gets intense out there very, very quickly. Atlanta's going to be a lot of fun this weekend. Bart, you've got a new song out you're just telling me about, Take Me Away. What do you love about making music, and how does that tie into everything you're working on?
Well, I grew up in church singing, and, my mom and my dad, they were a bit of hippies, and they put good music on me at a very young age. I was a carpenter for 15 years, and everything just seemed to gel. And I thought, cool, I'm gonna sell a jingle. And I went in to meet them, and they were like, hey, we love your vibe, we love your attitude, and we love your love for boiled peanuts. So they went ahead and made me the spokesperson, and I have not swung a hammer in, I think, 18 months. So I'm doing pretty good.
Must be going pretty well. That's awesome. Well, gentlemen, I really appreciate you being on this show. Brent, can you tell us more about where Peanut Patch will be, what you guys are going to be working on, both at Atlanta and beyond the rest of this year?
Oh, yeah, we've got a stacked couple months coming up. We're going to be, obviously, like you said, Atlanta. We're going to be at Bristol. Bart and I will be playing Field and Stream with Eric Church. So it's going to be great. We're going to be at the Greenville Country Music Festival. We're probably going to be down in Miami. It's just going crazy and crazy. And we're probably doing some cool stuff with Nitro Circus next year. So we'll see. Fingers crossed on that. Thanks to one of our employees, which used to be a forklift driver. Now he's kind of the guy that pulls our car around, Andy and Marion, one of the owners. We kind of brought David Reagan's 34 car back to life. So David's been real nice with us about it. As a matter of fact, David, if you're watching this, I found this under the seats. So if these are yours, I'll see you Sunday. These will be yours, buddy. But yeah, David's brought the car into his shop. They fixed it back up. It's running tip top. I mean, I think it did like 169 miles an hour in Darlington. It's still got some legs on it. But Sunday, we're going to be out there with David. David's going to be there signing autographs, and Bart and I are going to have a bunch of copies of the Pole Position magazine, which we're on the back of, which you'll sign those too. So come on out and get some free swag, take a picture in the car, and get some free boiled peanuts. I promise you, money back guarantee. You're going to love it.
Sounds great. That's awesome. Well, fans, be sure to stop by Peanut Patch. David Reagan will be there. Georgia driver, Georgia race. Y'all are doing it right. Going to be a fun time out there. Appreciate you both being on the show. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.
Thank you all so much for watching this episode. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe for more NASCAR content every single day, every single week, all year long. And a big thank you to my very generous Patreon supporters. Plenty more to come later this week. Have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday, folks. I will talk to you again soon.